My name is Chlo, and this is the Feed or Flow podcast, where you'll find authentic conversations on how to get your period back and restore your metabolism from years of disordered eating, low-calorie diets, and excessive exercise regimes. No trendy diets of celery juice and broccoli sprouts will be found here. Rather, my mission is to teach you balance and how the foods you've most likely cut out of your diet are the very ones that are essential for health. It's time we stop fearing food and embrace all that it can do for us. Food freedom, vivacious health, and a monthly menstrual cycle is possible, and I'm going to show you how to achieve this type of wellness without obsession. You talk a lot about using NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, to help your clients work through some of these thought processes. Can you please describe to the listeners what NLP is and how you use this and how it would be beneficial for eating disorder recovery?
Yeah, so I guess what's helped me about linguistic programming is it has this set of they're called presuppositions, so things that we believe about people. And some of them are in terms of like how our mind works. And actually, I've got a PhD in psychology. I've done an undergrad, a master's, but I actually learned a lot more additional stuff from learning neurolinguistic programming. And I guess a few of my favorite key takeaways that are applicable to people. One is basically thinking how we view the world, because there can be a situation. So, for example, you're at a barbecue, and if you have an eating disorder or disordered relationship with food, or you're on some kind of crash diet, actually, the way you look at that situation and the pictures that you're making in your head and the feelings that you're getting, you're probably going to be quite scared and quite worried. Whereas someone else who has different internal filters is going to be thinking, oh yay, barbecue, my favorite, like I love burgers. So it's basically kind of teaching us there's all these things in the external world. We can't process all that information because we would just be overwhelmed. And then, like I said, we have these filters in our head. We delete information, distort it, and generalize it in order to, help us process it better. But that is on an unconscious level.
And that's not
And
only with people suffering from an eating disorder, that is
oh yeah,
everyone,
everyone.
right?
Yeah,
All doing
everyone.
this.
Because, for example, if you had to walk down the street and look at every lamppost, every leaf, you basically couldn't function. So we kind of do delete this information. But unfortunately, when you've got an eating disorder, your filters also become kind of changed, like your values change. And I know when I had an eating disorder myself, I prioritized exercise and, what I thought was healthy eating over spending time with my friends and family. And that obviously wasn't working out for me very well. So NLP, we are quite judgment free. We kind of look, how is that working for you? How are your beliefs working for you? How is your identity working for you? And then when we find out, okay, it's not really working for you, getting towards your goals, there are different techniques that we can do to help you change those things quicker. So it is quite targeted. It's not like, oh, you'll have one session and everything ever is better. But actually, people can let go of specific beliefs quite quickly. And also, now I'm going on for a minute, but the other thing that was just not even mind blowing, but just really oh my gosh, this is so important. People should know this. I did learn it in some eating disorder training before, but I didn't understand what the lady was saying. But basically, your mind can't process a negative. And what that means is if we want to think about, often people I don't want to be stressed about food. Well, actually, to think about not being stressed, you have to think about being stressed and then think, oh,
Totally.
that's not what I want. So actually, you're making the picture in your head of the thing that you don't want and then trying to cancel it out. Whereas it's much more effective to make the picture of the thing that you do want instead. So I want to feel relaxed and comfortable around food. So I think even just kind of being consciously aware of that and, focusing on what you do want is actually really helpful for people.
I absolutely love that little switch. It's changing the words to be what you do want and not what you don't want. So you're not fixating on that. One of the first things I do with my clients is I have them visualize their healthy self and
Mm.
journal exercising and meditations and visualizations and all of that to really focus on what is this healthy relationship with food and your body that you are wanting. What does it look like? Because just like when we, get in the car and we're trying to say go to a restaurant, we don't just tell Siri hey, take me to some restaurant. Like you're trying to get to a specific place, and you're going to be very, dismayed if you show up at like Korean barbecue, but you were really wanting Thai food. And
Mm.
so we tell Siri exactly what it is that we want before we get there. And it's kind of the same thing that I do with my clients is like, what is it that you want? Let's really focus on that. And it's kind of very similar to that. It's changing the words to what do you want instead of focusing on everything that's going wrong and what you don't want.
Yeah, I think the other really important thing too with eating disorders is almost that people are like, when am I recovered? So when you've already given yourself, well, when I'm recovered, I'll be feeling like this, I'll be thinking those things, when you've got that. Otherwise, it's like, maybe just a bit more, maybe I'm still sick. And it's not a black and white line, but I think it's really helpful, like you say, for people to have that goal and then they can know when they've got that goal and it feels really good.
100%. And yes, it is not a clear line. You don't just one day get an eating disorder and you don't one day get out of it. Although there are a lot of, big momentous events
Mhm.
that can happen that really push you forward in your journey. But I remember I was at a party once with some friends, and this was, a year and a half, 2 years into my recovery. I remember someone showed up with a big thing of Coca-Cola and they're like, hey, who wants some like nice, fresh, cold Coca-Colas? And I grabbed one, popped it open and drank it, and then was like, whoa. And I had this like crazy experience, even though I had food freedom already at that point. But it was that crazy experience of like, yes, this is what I visualized. Like me just being able to say yes to some random thing and something like Coca-Cola, which, I totally feared before. But now I took it, I opened it up and it was so normal. And I remember that was a little moment that it was like, yes, this is just more confirmation that recovery is here. And so that is really cool, like you're mentioning.
Yeah, I kind of say to my clients, somehow it is like there's a line in the sand that you've kind of like stepped over it, and hopefully people, well, I know for me, it's like I'm never going back to that. Obviously, I can't 100% guarantee that, but I feel pretty 99.999% sure I do not want that life again because it was just horrible. But then I feel like it still can keep getting better. Like sometimes when I work with clients now, and they talk about a specific food, and I think, oh, I've not had that food since I recovered, just because it's either not my favorite food or I just didn't think about it. So then I like make a point to go and eat that when they tell me. So I feel like it just keeps getting better every year as well.
It totally does. I want to ask a couple more questions because I do want to hear your story a little bit as well, but we're going to dive into that a little further along in
Mm,
the podcast. But going back to the NLP, you also mentioned the brain works on less effort and less resistance. And
mm.
I'd love to hear, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. So
I'd love to hear more
basically,
about
yeah, this isn't just from NLP. Actually, I learned it in my PhD as well when we're looking at why would we form a habit? Because a habit is so automatic and effortless for us to do. Like we can get up and make a cup of tea while we're thinking like, what am I going to do at work today? Like otherwise our brain would just be so overloaded. And the thing is when people have an eating disorder or disordered eating, actually our habits of thought and behavior are, like we said, the ones that aren't really working for us. And we can obviously change them, but people feel kind of stuck in those habits because your brain is always trying to help you. I think that's the thing to remember. Sometimes it gets the wrong idea about stuff and it turns out that it's not actually helping you, but fundamentally it was trying to help you achieve something. And sort of in the NLP, but I also do hypnotherapy. And then in that, we do a regression and we go look at memories related to the eating disorder. And we kind of see, oh, where did that belief come from? Oh, look, it made perfect sense when you were 6 years old. And can't think of an example, but you're picking up someone else's belief and it made sense then, but it doesn't make sense now and it's not working for you now. So we need to reprogram those beliefs. So I think feels frustrating that our brain is working on less effort, but like we couldn't function with all the information coming in if it wasn't doing that for us. We just have to learn to make it work to our advantage. So that's probably where people do like sort of environmental interventions as well. So, sometimes I do it with my clients as well, like they'll move the scales, for example, into a different room. So it's like they could still use them if they want to, but it almost just gives them that little snap back to reality when they're not there instantly. And then they can kind of think, oh, actually, I remember when I talked to Rachel, how anxious it makes me when I weigh myself. And we decided that maybe it's not such a good idea. So I'm not going to do it today. But you haven't totally removed the choice. Did that make sense?
No, totally. It 100% does. And it's really smart to break that just habitual habit and routine that it's so, like you're mentioning, it's subconscious. We don't even realize we're doing it. We're boiling the tea and we're thinking of a million things, and we don't have to be paying so close attention to it. So to put something in a different place, that is going to get you to think twice about what you are doing. So I love that. I think that is definitely like really powerful. And I've read a lot of books on like habits and everything, and they say very similar things in regards to how to actually create a new habit and to get rid of one that you don't want. Thanks for listening to this short clip from the Feed or Flow podcast. To listen to the rest of the show, head on over to your favorite podcast app like iTunes or Spotify. If your period has gone MIA, you're going to want to get her back. She's important for your health and misses you dearly. I've created a juicy online course designed to teach you everything I wish I knew about getting my period back, restoring my metabolism, and cultivating a healthy, nourishing relationship with food. The Get Your Flow On course is designed to empower and inspire you to achieve full recovery. Head on over to www.flowwithchlo.com to sign up.